All right. Welcome everyone to the Sitecore Pittsburgh user group. Today we'll be talking about from idea to marketplace, how to build a marketplace app. And this is primarily based on all of my experience working with the team that was building the marketplace, as well as doing the pre-release of the marketplace and working with the team to help improve. Um, my name is Akshay Sura. I've been doing Sitecore for a little while now, involved in a few community things here and there. Um, Wanted to start off with like some really good resources, and Sitecore's been really good, especially with the marketplace. I've found that there's quite a bit of documentation readily available, and it was pretty easy for me to follow it. I didn't have to ask anyone any questions or go through anything. I put a blurb, a screenshot of the section which has all the links. So if you go to the Marketplace SDK, on that page, there's a ton of info. But the Marketplace SDK itself, there's starter kits, there's a couple of examples. I was talking to Rob Earlham yesterday. They put on the icon picker and the Google Analytics integration. So that gives you a really good code base for you to get started. It's really not difficult at all. It's super simple. Um, Also wanted to put in what do you call QR codes for two other blog posts that I wrote, just trying to get started, thinking about from a architecture perspective, thinking about it from a what kind of keys that you need, what do you need to do. So both of these blog posts will definitely help you out. And then after that, just give me one second. Let me switch. I wanted to quickly show you guys how this would work. Give me one second. Uh, Sorry. All right. I gotta log in. So what I wanted to quickly show you. Refresh. All right, cool. So this is the current marketplace at this moment in time. I wanted to do a couple of things in there, for you to kind of see it. As you can see, it lists all of these. You can pick a specific app and then, read through it. There's a form that you need to fill out. If it's a public app, give a bunch of information and stuff, but you can easily install it. So you can select the one of the your tenants can have multiple sites. You can pick which one you want, install it. It's fairly simple, especially the ones which are in the public facing or the marketplace. Should be fairly easy to install it. As you can see, it doesn't really take that long. So that's pretty decent. The other one I wanted to actually show you was the App Studio. So the App Studio is where you can actually see your app. You can dig into it to kind of look at different things in the app as well, but we can create one really easily. It really doesn't take that long. So and then at first it'll ask you two choices, and you can go from, I think, custom to a public, but I don't know if you can go from public to a custom. I don't remember 100%. But custom is where you can just turn it on and it starts working, like the icon picker, for instance, or the Google Analytics. It might need some more configuration on your end. There's a little bit more involved than just straight turning it on and it working. A public app, again, it's and then the custom app you have to enable. So as an app author, you get to select, I am going to give it to org A, org B, org C. And you can kind of control it. You can test it in a limited capacity and give access to other orgs. Public, once you make an app public, again, you have to go through a formal approval process where you fill in a form. There's quite a few things that you need to do in order for the application to be submitted. But once you submit it and it's approved, it's available publicly, like you just saw, and any person with Sitecore AI can go in there, click on the app, and they can install it. So you could pick one of these and then you hit create. And essentially, what that does is it creates the app in the marketplace. It's not active yet. It has a lot of steps to go through before you can make it active. And each app has what are known as extension points. Extension points, as in, where is this app visible? How is it available to the person using it? So, for instance, you could actually now, with the newer version, I think in October of the Marketplace SDK, you can have a standalone app with both client side and server side part of the app independent, run with the API keys and integrate with the marketplace, which is kind of cool. I haven't really tried that part, but you can have a dashboard widget, you could have a page context widget, and then you all probably heard about being able to extend using the custom fields. I haven't really touched that part, but I mainly have used a dashboard widget and the page context widget, which kind of gives you the access. And then you don't really have that much choice. You just have one, which is what API access do you need from your app? You definitely need some of these in order for you to get information about the page, the current page you're in, or the current tenant, or the current site that you're in to do things. So, obviously you would select that. I'm not going to save this guy, but and then you have your deployment URL. This is in my case, it's the Vercel app that I push to. You have a qualified domain name. For the most part, when you're working on it by yourself, you would end up just using localhost 5000 to play around with it. And then once you're ready, you have an instance running, then you would push it and then give it a proper URL for it to be publicly accessible. App ID is interesting. Like this is mainly for you to maintain it, for Sitecore to know what it is. Orgs, again, this won't make any sense if it is a public app. You wouldn't really play around with this as much. But if it's a custom app, this is where you kind of give access to, you would get the org ID for whoever wants to use your app, and you would specify that in here, and you can give it to multiple apps. And this is the other part I was mentioning about in October. They released an app, released a version for the Marketplace SDK where you can actually have an independent app which has both server side and client side. And you can create client credentials so you can authenticate with the APIs that you need to. So that's kind of interesting. They're slowly adding more and more features to the marketplace. It's something that is quite important to Sitecore at this moment in time. So they are spending time on it, which makes sense. So again, from a Sitecore cloud perspective, I mainly use the page widget and then the dashboard widget. Basically, here it just talks about um, like what's the routing URL for the page context, what's the routing URL for dashboard, and you can customize this. So if I wanted to change it, I can. It's basically how you are routing it inside. Um, that makes the difference. So that's pretty much it from that side. So once you create the app, it does most of the thing. Once you push it up, and then I want to show you how the apps look. So go here. So in terms of context of the app, you would notice this icon everywhere you go, basically. So if there is an app that fits this context and you hit this, you will be able to see it. So for instance, if I go to Page Builder on this one, and then it opens up a page, you can open the apps and you can kind of see what are available. You can even go and install one if you wanted to. But at this moment in time, the Sitecore one is available and it takes care of that part. Essentially, it renders an iframe with your app embedded inside of it, and then it passes all the context to it. One thing to remember is in the marketplace, and again, the documentation clearly states all of this. They use the block system. It's pretty cool. Let me see if I can get to it. It's I think so. They have documented the block system. It's pretty neat. I didn't, version one, I didn't end up using the block system. Um, and then when I came to when they released the marketplace version two, Stavros basically said, "Can you please update with the block system? Let me know the feedback." And it really didn't take that long at all. All of these are very standard components, and they're pretty easy to use. So I changed all of mine based on block, and it was super simple. So it wasn't really hard. Building an app was super simple. And then there's other, I know they changed this recently. Hold on.
Okay, I have one quick question related to the block.
Sure.
So those block can be used in any apps that we build for XM Cloud, or this could be used anywhere else within the XM platform itself.
So yes to both of them, but I think there was a recent question on Slack asking the same exact question, and the answer was technically you can, but you probably don't want to be using this in a client project because they
I
are
see.
similar frameworks to this, right? The Shad CDN blocks, Chakra UI, I think is which is what this is based on, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, so if you're going to use it on a customer one, it would just make sense for you to use those directly rather than using the block system. But anything that integrates directly into Sitecore AI, you would want to use the block system to make it look seamless, essentially.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So in this one, I know it was a bit difficult to get to the dashboard part, but um, this is the dashboard widget again. Like I don't have to add it. It's already added onto my dashboard, but it looks like it's supposed to be part of Sitecore AI. Nothing changes. Like it is the way it is. So it's kind of neat. Let me go back here. So I wanted to mention that like when I was looking at making this modern, it was so Sitecron was used by Sitecore XP and XM customers. It's on premise, right? It's installed on the server. And then now we have to suddenly start thinking about SaaS, suddenly start thinking about what exactly am I going to do with this? Because now people want to be able to, what would they want to do? They want to publish, they want to unpublish, they probably want to run webhooks, they want to customize in some way. And it was kind of a little bit of an interesting discovery. Sitecore does guide you on it, like at least in the earlier program that we had to go through to kind of validate each of the ideas. And you have to really think of true SaaS model essentially. So once you start thinking about, okay, now how do I make this fit? You need a front-end UI which gets slotted into the iframe, and then that needs to do something, but it needs to do it outside because the whole scheduling, being able to initiate the jobs. But then when I have to come back, I have to come back into Sitecore AI to publish or to run a GraphQL command. I need a management API at that moment in time. So there's a lot of interesting challenges that you would have to go through to kind of figure out what exactly did you want to do on it. So uh, what I ended up doing is trying to figure out in my case, okay, I know that at least the initial part, I want to be able to publish is the basic minimum thing that I want to do. So in order to publish, I would have to go into, so in order to publish, I would have to go onto a page at this moment in time, at least, be able to figure out, okay, this is the page I want to publish and give someone the ability to hit I want to schedule this page for a publish. But for that to happen, I need to do a couple of things. So while it's embedded in a page, right? So let me go back here. While the iframe is embedded in a page, it needs to send something all the way to something else as a app service, which provides an API layer. In my case, that's what I ended up doing. So it's a .NET Core um, app service, which runs in a Linux app service, uses SQL for persistence, uses Quartz.net, and then essentially when the job triggers, when the job triggers, it will then have to call back to XM Cloud and do things. So the front end layer, again, Next.js uses the block system, uses the Marketplace SDK. The second version at this moment in time has a couple of contexts, right? And then there's a backend layer, which is an Azure web app, which provides the API layer, managing the job, specifying, okay, org A needs to be able to make a call because when all these Sitecore AI instances are making calls, it needs to differentiate between tenant A to tenant B if we do have tenant A configured or not. So that's all done by the app service. And then there's a scheduling layer, which again is Quartz.net by itself, and it needs SQL. It can also run in MySQL and a couple other databases, but I chose SQL Server just because it's easier. Um, and then there's a layer where you need to go back and do your GraphQL commands, do the management API calls. That's the integration layer. For that, we also need a way for the client ID secret to go back and make the call. So that's the interesting part. And then the data layer itself. Now, when I first pushed this out there, we got like a ton of questions saying, okay, fine, am I going to share jobs with other other tenants? How many tenants can you run? How many jobs can it run? So you started getting questions like that, and I was really glad that I made the choice that we'll stick with a custom app because this is why, right? Like, so imagine you have a Sitecore AI instance provisioned. I need Sitecore Cloud. What do I need to do? So at first you would have to get me the org ID, the tenant ID, the site ID, and the client ID and the client secret. That's like five pieces of info that you need to give me, which I can detect by myself. I can figure out the tenant ID and site ID, super simple. Org ID is a tiny bit difficult. Client ID, client secret, I won't, the app, if it was running on your instance, won't be able to figure that out. So you need to give me that. I need to configure it on my end in order to make sure that the authentication happens. So that's why a custom app plays really, really well in this case. Um, and then also from an architecture perspective, it is super important because you need to be able to scale. So if you want, the whole point of a marketplace app is that Sitecore wants you to be able to customize your Sitecore AI instances, customize it in terms of functionality, add custom fields, add custom functionality. You could even do integrations with third-party systems this way, right? But in order for that to work, you need to be able to scale. So you need to think of scale way before you start writing code because then when these questions came up, I'm like, oh yeah, sure. If your customer wants a specific instance just for themselves, this is what the cost is. Thankfully, the cost isn't that much because it's a Linux app service, but you can separate them. So then at this moment now we can scale per tenant, per site. One customer can have their own instance, or the same instance can support hundreds of customers because of the way it currently runs. So architecting it the right way really, really makes a big difference. And then I've used Quartz.net several times over, used it at customer places where Sitecorn was used, and I know that it's pretty resilient and works really, really well. So every single thing that was chosen, so the Azure App Service for Linux can scale, SQL Server can scale, Quartz.net can scale, Next.js, which is the app that takes the hit for the iframe, can scale. So it didn't really make much of a difference in terms of, yeah, we can easily do it not an issue at all. So just wanted to mention that part that it is really important. And also over engineering. So I kind of, even this seems like a lot, but I separated this for separate purposes, right? So just from a usage perspective, you can lump Quartz.net and the backend layer in the same app service. Would it work? Yeah, I think it would. It's just thinking about how to scale it if we need to scale it was something that we were planning on doing. And this way also, based on the requests that I'm getting right now. So the next set of requests was, all right, can you do A, B, and C? One of them being, can you clear the cache on Vercel or Netlify right after I publish? The answer is yeah, you can do that. I would need a few keys for authenticating, right? I have to make an API call to Vercel or run a CLI command for Vercel or Netlify in order to clear the cache. So if we do that, the release, if it was one lump, would affect everyone, would might break everyone. But in this case, if it's just a backend layer or a front-end layer code change, if a marketplace SDK update happens, I could just push the front end layer and not have to worry about all the different layers. So it's really, really important the way you split things is what I can mention. So that's an interesting part as well. And then what I also wanted to mention is in terms of the dashboard context or the other context you want to use, you can really do a lot of things in here. So for instance, in here for the dashboard context, I'm only showing you what the total tenant count for the jobs are. You could technically have a reporting in here is the top five failed jobs. You could add a lot of dashboard like analytics in here saying today we ran 5 out of 15 jobs. Is five current jobs pending. You could give them access to buttons to rerun all of the jobs for today, run a specific job for today. So you could really add quite a bit of functionality. I have not found something that I didn't want in this. The only thing I will mention from my perspective that I think they're still adding it. Let me see if I can get to it. Is no, not that one. What am I looking for? I am looking for, yeah, AI deploy. So the only thing I'm currently waiting on is for us to be able to um, specify the keys. So essentially, what happens is I want to be able to specify variables, almost like I mean, if you've used Vercel or Netlify, you can specify environment variables where you can specify authentication keys that you want to use in order to authenticate with an external system. In my case, originally I had started off with the backend layer needing authentication. So not having to worry about who the tenant is or the site, but just based on a key, know who they are. But unfortunately, there's no clean way of storing it at this moment. There's no way of storing secrets at this moment in time. That's something that's high on their target list. That's something that they're actually currently working on, which will probably come in the next release or so. But once we are able to store secrets, that will open up quite a bit. Then I don't need to store it on my end. This can pass it to me, or this can use it to authenticate with me, or any third-party system. That's the only missing piece for the functionality I was looking for, but the rest of it, everything I needed was pretty much available from that perspective. So, and there's a lot of documentation. I'm not an Next.js developer. I am not a React developer or a JS developer at all. And I was able to get it done pretty easily. What I would say though is start small, probably with like a page context first, see how that works, figure it out, see what's available. So in mine, what I ended up doing is I have quite a bit of debug info, which I removed quite a bit of it. But everything that I have access to, I spit it out in here as debug. So when I'm working with this, I know exactly what I have access to. If I have access to the tenant ID, do I know the site name? Do I have access to the current page? What all do I have access to? I removed that from here, but it's better for you to push that onto the UI so you know what's happening, or you can look in the console log to kind of figure it out. So it makes it easier for you. So it's overall my experience building the app was pretty straightforward. Didn't have many issues. The Sitecore team, Karasi, Stavros, Justin were really, really sweet in trying to give me all of the information that I need when I needed it. But also the portal for what do you call the documentation? It's very up to date. So it's pretty up to date, and yeah, I didn't really face many issues at all. With that, I can go on and on, but with that, do you guys have any questions that I can answer?
Yeah, that was pretty good, Akshay. Thank you. I specifically did not have questions, but good thoughts around the tenant and details. Like right now, when you mentioned you're asking for all the details,
Mhm.
so how would that work? So the if for example, if I need to install Sitecore, so am I going to reach out to you, or like the form that we fill up that comes
Yeah,
back to
so
you?
it's pretty sensitive info, so I don't want to form or an email. So right now you would reach out, I would get the information or tell you how to get that information from your instance, work with you, configure that on my end so it's available. All I'm doing right now is just trying to figure out with people for them to use it and then let me know the use cases they are looking for, and publishing being one of the easiest, right?
Mhm.
I already have the ability to kick off webhooks, so you can trigger at a specific time a webhook. Maybe it calls an external system which does something like media scanning or SEO scanning. I don't know, whatever that is.
Okay.
Um, so that's already there, and just want to get some feedback. And then with all of the releases at the Sitecore Symposium, people have a lot more questions, right? So the first question was with the release of the releases that Liz was talking about, where up to the second you can release multiple channels, content at the same time, and then roll it back, which is kind of cool. But in my mind, I see that as not right now, just because it seems more to be based on the content service, right? Which relies on the Cosmos DB, which is in the future. It's in the coming future, probably like Feb or June. I'm not quite sure, but I know it's pretty soon. But until that happens, we don't really know the releases part. So I'm kind of curious to see what that does. And then we talked about agentic workflows which can run independently, which can do the SEO, which can do the GEO, which can check the traffic overnight to see if something dropped. Now, if all of them are doing what they're supposed to, maybe there's not even a need for Sitecron. But at this moment, I don't really know. All I know is that Sitecron, the base version, which is used on the XPs, still gets downloaded a few hundred times a day, every single day. So I know people are using it, builds are happening every day. I know that the couple of customers that I had worked for, they use it for syndication purposes, which is, at a specific time, they need to send these set of articles to customer A, these set of articles to customer B, right?
Yep.
That I'm not, I don't know if it'll be captured by a use case by the agentic workflow, for instance. I'm not 100% sure or how they would be customized.
I personally have been using in multiple clients, man, for Sitecore. So
Oh,
if
okay,
we move
yeah,
out, I've been personally whenever if there is a precise time in these cases, if it is a public company and they want to post the news at a particular
yeah,
time, like you can go like 1 minute plus or minus or even
yeah,
seconds early or later. So those
yeah.
kind of scenarios, if time is very critical, then I always recommend Sitecore to go with it.
Yeah, like the stock, like anything regulatory that it has to be
Yep.
up on the
Yes.
site.
Yes.
That's what I've used it for in the past, and that's why I mean, I know there's a lot of new announcements. I just want to see how that works as well. At this moment in time, the instance that we're running is plenty enough with the Azure credits we get, so
Mhm.
I'm not too worried about it. But that's what I'm doing is testing, finding out different scenarios people are looking into.